May 8, 1945, marked Victory in Europe Day, a moment of jubilation across America. Church bells tolled, and streets overflowed with celebrants. Yet, the war in the Pacific pressed on, its end uncertain. In a small, lesser-known prisoner-of-war camp near Camp Pendleton, California, a group of Japanese women prisoners, captured during the brutal island-hopping campaigns, faced a future shrouded in doubt. These women, part of the Japanese Women's Auxiliary Service, had served as nurses, clerks, and signal operators for the Imperial Japanese Army. When the prospect of repatriation to a defeated Japan emerged after the war's end, many made a choice that defied expectation. They pleaded to stay in America. What could compel these women, raised to see Americans as enemies, to seek a new life in the land of their captors? Before we dive into their remarkable journey, share where you're reading from in the comments below. The story begins in late January 1945, when a transport ship docked at San Diego, carrying 50 Japanese women prisoners to a modest facility near Camp Pendleton. Captured in the Philippines, Saipan, and Guam, they ranged in age from 19 to 34. Some had volunteered for the Women's Auxiliary Service out of patriotic fervor. Others were conscripted, driven by economic hardship or family pressure. Unlike the sprawling camps for male POWs, this compound was intimate, designed to house fewer than 60 prisoners in a cluster of wooden barracks surrounded by barbed wire. The women arrived under the watchful eye of Captain Elizabeth Harper, a 35-year-old officer known for her no-nonsense demeanor and quiet compassion. Her assignment to oversee this unique camp was a rarity, as few women held such roles in the U.S. military. Among the prisoners was Hana Takahashi, a 25-year-old nurse from Osaka. She clutched a small silk pouch containing a faded photograph of her parents and younger brother, her only tether to a life upended by war. Beside her stood Yuki Sato, a 20-year-old signal operator from Tokyo, whose slight frame and persistent limp from a shrapnel wound belied her fierce determination. The women stepped off the trucks in tattered auxiliary uniforms, their navy blue skirts and blouses faded, but meticulously maintained. Their faces bore a mix of exhaustion, defiance, and uncertainty, yet they moved with the disciplined precision of their training, forming neat rows under the California sun. Captain Harper observed them closely. In her journal, she later wrote, "They carried themselves like soldiers, despite everything. There was pride in their eyes, but also fear. I wondered what they saw when they looked at us." The American staff, a mix of seasoned soldiers and young recruits, were equally curious. Many had never interacted with Japanese civilians, let alone women who had served the enemy. Stereotypes of fanatical loyalty clashed with the reality of these weary human figures. The first weeks were marked by a tense silence. The women adhered to camp routines, cleaning barracks, preparing meals, and tending the small garden with mechanical efficiency. They spoke only in hushed Japanese, their conversations confined to meal times or late-night whispers in their bunks. Captain Harper enforced strict but fair rules, ensuring the women were treated according to the Geneva Convention. Yet, the cultural and linguistic divide loomed large. The women had been taught to expect cruelty from Americans. Instead, they encountered something unexpected. Private Daniel Lopez, a 22-year-old Mexican-American guard from Tucson, was the first to bridge the gap. Noticing Yuki's struggle with her limp during a work detail, he approached her one chilly February morning. Without a word, he handed her a pair of wool socks from his own kit, gesturing to her worn shoes. Yuki froze, her dark eyes searching his face for a motive. She had been told Americans were barbaric, yet this young man's gesture was gentle, almost shy. "Arigato," she murmured, accepting the socks. It was a small act, but it lingered in her mind, challenging everything she'd been taught. Other acts of kindness followed. Sergeant Emily Chen, a 28-year-old Chinese-American linguist whose parents had fled persecution, understood the sting of being seen as other. She began offering informal English lessons in the mess hall, using chalkboards and sketches to teach basic phrases. Hana, who had studied some English in high school, joined eagerly, her curiosity outweighing her caution. She was struck by Sergeant Chen's patience, so different from the propaganda that painted Americans as heartless. "They don't hate us," Hannah wrote in her journal, a small notebook she kept hidden in her silk pouch. "They look at us with questions, not anger." The prisoners, in turn, began to share fragments of their lives. Yuki taught Private Lopez to fold an origami crane, her fingers deft despite her injury. The guards, initially hesitant, reciprocated with small gestures, sharing apples from the camp's orchard, or teaching the women card games during breaks. These exchanges, tentative at first, began to erode the barriers of enmity. The Lunar New Year in February 1945 marked a turning point. Captain Harper, aware of the holiday's significance in Asian cultures, consulted Sergeant Chen and decided to allow a modest celebration. The women were given colored paper, string, and access to the kitchen to prepare traditional rice cakes. They crafted lanterns and decorations, transforming the drab mess hall into a space of quiet beauty. Hannah, emboldened by her growing trust, approached Captain Harper with a request. "Captain, may we sing a Japanese song for you? And try an American one?" Harper, intrigued, agreed. That evening, the women gathered in the mess hall, their voices rising in the delicate melody of Sakura, a folk song about cherry blossoms. The guards listened, captivated by the haunting harmony. Then, in halting English, the women attempted "America the Beautiful," their pronunciation imperfect but earnest. The room fell silent, the air thick with emotion. Private Lopez wrote to his sister, "Hearing those women sing our song, I forgot they were the enemy. They looked like girls from home, lost and far away." For the first time, the women smiled openly, their rigid postures softening. By April 1945, the camp had transformed. The women volunteered for extra duties, not out of obligation, but a desire to contribute. Hannah worked alongside Dr. Samuel Reed, the camp's physician, her nursing skills proving invaluable. Her gentle demeanor and meticulous care earned his respect. "She's a natural," Dr. Reed told Captain Harper. "I'd trust her with any patient." Yuki, meanwhile, found purpose in the garden, teaching guards and prisoners alike to cultivate vegetables using techniques she'd learned from her grandmother. Her origami lessons became a camp staple, with cranes adorning the barracks. The women's interactions with the Americans grew deeper. Sergeant Chen organized cultural exchanges, where the women shared stories of Japanese festivals, and the guards described American traditions like baseball games and 4th of July barbecues. Hannah, now fluent enough to hold conversations, discovered shared dreams and fears. "The guards miss their families just like us," she wrote. "They're not so different. They want the war to end too." The war's end in August 1945 brought seismic change. Japan's surrender, followed by reports of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, reached the camp through newspapers and radio broadcasts. Hannah and Yuki sat in the camp library, poring over grainy images of devastation. The accounts of entire cities reduced to ash, of survivors scarred and homeless, shook them to their core. "Is this what we served?" Hannah whispered to Yuki, her voice breaking. "Did we know what our leaders were doing?" Other women joined them, their faces reflecting shock and shame. They weren't militarists or ideologues, but ordinary women who had believed they were defending their homeland. Now they faced the truth of Japan's actions and its defeat. The camp, once a place of confinement, had become a sanctuary. The women had formed bonds with the American staff, who treated them as individuals, not enemies. Hannah had grown close to the Wilson family, local church volunteers who visited the camp. Mrs. Wilson, a librarian with a warm smile, was drawn to Hannah's intelligence and compassion. "You're not your country's mistakes," she told Hannah during a quiet conversation. "You can choose who you become." Yuki, too, found support in Dr. Reed, who praised her resilience and encouraged her to pursue medical training. As repatriation plans were announced in September 1945, the women grappled with an agonizing choice. Japan lay in ruins, its cities bombed, its people starving. Many had lost contact with their families. Some feared they had no one left. The camp, by contrast, offered purpose and acceptance. On September 15th, Captain Harper addressed the women in the mess hall, her voice steady. "Ladies, the War Department has finalized plans for your repatriation. You'll be transported to Japan within weeks, processed through displaced persons camps, and released to your homes." Hannah stood, her heart pounding. "Captain Harper, some of us, we wish to stay. America has shown us kindness we didn't expect. We want to build lives here, to contribute." Yuki and 9 others rose beside her, their faces resolute. The room buzzed with astonishment. Private Lopez exchanged a glance with Sergeant Chen, both moved by the women's courage. Captain Harper, bound by protocol, promised to relay their request to Washington. While awaiting a response, the women threw themselves into their roles with renewed vigor. Hannah assisted Dr. Reed in treating a flu outbreak, her calm efficiency saving lives. Yuki's garden flourished, supplying fresh produce to the camp kitchen. She taught origami to local children who visited with church groups, her cranes becoming symbols of hope. The women's contributions were undeniable, yet their request sparked controversy. Local newspapers ran conflicting stories. Some decried favoring enemy prisoners while American soldiers still fought in the Pacific's aftermath. Others, moved by church testimonials, praised the women's transformation. The Wilsons organized a community meeting, arguing, "These women have shown remorse and growth. They're not the enemy anymore." Father Thomas Cato, a Japanese-American priest from San Diego, visited the camp, speaking with the women in their native tongue. He challenged them. "Japan is broken. Could you not help rebuild it? Your skills, your compassion, don't they belong there?" His words ignited fierce debate. Some women, like 27-year-old clerk Aiko Mori, felt torn. "I want to help Japan," she told Hannah, "but I'm afraid of what I'll find. No home, no family, only shame." Hannah, too, wrestled with doubt. Her journal entries from this period reveal her struggle. "Am I abandoning my duty, or choosing a new one? America gave me a chance to see people, not enemies. Can I carry that back to Japan, or do I stay to prove it here?" In October, Washington's response arrived. The War Department would allow repatriation but offered an alternative. The women could apply for displaced person status, requiring sponsors, jobs, and housing. It was a daunting prospect. Freedom without the camp's structure meant navigating a new country as former enemies. Of the 11 who initially wished to stay, 4 chose repatriation, fearing the uncertainty. 7, including Hannah and Yuki, resolved to remain. The Wilsons sponsored Hannah, offering her a room in their home and helping her secure a job as a nurse's aide at a San Diego hospital. Dr. Reed advocated for Yuki, arranging training as a physical therapist. Other families stepped forward, inspired by the women's sincerity. The community that had once viewed them with suspicion now saw a chance to embody America's ideals of redemption. On November 1, 1945, Repatriation Day arrived. The 43 departing women stood in formation, their military precision softened by months of connection. They carried letters from guards, photos of the camp, and Yuki's origami cranes. Captain Harper addressed them, her voice thick with emotion. "You came as enemies but leave as friends. Take this hope with you, and build something better." Hannah, speaking for those staying, said, "We thought America was cruel. We found humanity instead. We'll carry that lesson always." The women who stayed faced challenges but thrived. Hannah earned her nursing certification, later working with the State Department to aid displaced persons from Asia and Europe. Her unique perspective bridged cultural divides. Yuki became a physical therapist, her origami workshops a local tradition symbolizing peace. Those who returned to Japan faced hardship but carried stories of American kindness, becoming advocates for reconciliation. Several joined Japanese-American friendship societies, fostering ties between nations. In 1970, Hannah Takahashi Wilson spoke at a San Francisco peace conference holding her silk pouch. "Home," she said, "is where you choose to heal, to grow, to forgive. America gave us that choice, and we became part of its story." The Camp Pendleton women proved that even in war's darkest moments, humanity could prevail, transforming enemies into allies and despair into hope. Their legacy shaped U.S. policies on refugees, showing that kindness and opportunity could rewrite even the most painful chapters of history.